Welcome to day 180 on the trail. We have three readings for today from 2 Corinthians 9 verse 1 through 10:18, 1 Samuel 18 verse 1 through 19:24, and 2 Maccabees chapter 10 verses 10 through 23. Today, I would like to reflect on a theme that we find in our readings from 1 Samuel and 2 Corinthians: humility. In 1 Samuel, following David's victory over Goliath, Saul places the army under David's command. However, David's success on the battlefield did not please the king as one might expect. Instead, David's fame and acceptance by the nation arouses jealousy on the part of Saul. From 1 Samuel 18, beginning in verse 7. And the women sang to one another as they made merry, "Saul has killed his thousands, and David his 10,000s." Saul was very angry, for this saying displeased him. He said, "They have ascribed to David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed thousands. What more can he have but the kingdom?" So Saul eyed David from that day on. Throughout the Bible, we see the danger of jealousy and its sinister consequences played out again and again. Cain is jealous of God's approval of Abel's sacrifice, leading to the first murder. Jacob is jealous of Esau's birthright and tricks his own brother out of this birthright and his father's blessing. This leads to their estrangement and Jacob's departure from the family for decades. Joseph's brothers are jealous of his father's love and sell their brother into slavery in Egypt. And we have not yet left the first book of the Bible in these cases. One of the 10 Commandments is dedicated to not coveting the property of our neighbor. In the New Testament, this theme continues. In the book of James, we find a clear and powerful warning regarding jealousy and envy. From the book of James chapter 3, beginning in verse 14. But if you have bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not be boastful and false to the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, devilish. For where there is envy and selfish ambition, there will also be disorder and wickedness of every kind. In the story of Saul and David, we can watch how Saul's jealousy grows and begins to destroy Saul from the inside out. Despite David's service to Israel and faithful support of Saul, both as a military leader and musician who helps bring peace to a troubled Saul, the king repeatedly attempts to kill David. Eventually, David has to escape and flee to his advocate, Samuel. Also, notice that throughout the story, Saul's envy is contrasted with David's humility. Even though David has proven himself a skilled military leader, he refers to himself as a poor man of no repute. Therefore, as we continue our search to understand David's heart, humility is a trait that bears remembering. As Jesus taught us in Matthew chapter 23, beginning in verse 11, "The greatest among you will be your servant. All who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all who humble themselves will be exalted." Then, in our reading from the New Testament in 2 Corinthians, we find Paul defending himself against his opponents. In the course of this discussion, he writes in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, beginning in verse 17, "Let the one who boasts, boast in the Lord. For it is not those who commend themselves that are approved, but those whom the Lord commends." Throughout Paul's writings, he continually condemns boasting, because boasting and self-assertion flows from pride and does not leave room for thanksgiving and dependence upon the grace of God. However, Paul is emphasizing that any boasting that he can offer is only based on the work of God and not his own human effort or capacity. Therefore, Paul repeats here what he told the Corinthian church in 1 Corinthians chapter 1. "Let the one who boasts boast in the Lord. But here, in 2 Corinthians, he adds this, beginning in verse 17. Let the one who boasts boast in the Lord. For it is not those who commend themselves that are approved, but those whom the Lord commends. Therefore, if God has indeed commended Paul and his mission, his boasting is in effect honoring God and God's work in his ministry. Luke Timothy Johnson, in his book Writings of the New Testament, provides an excellent summary of Paul's argument in chapter 10. And God has commended Paul, so that his boasting is in effect a praise of God. To deny his qualifications would be to deny God's work. This, indeed, is what so upsets Paul about the Corinthians' fascination with other teachers. If they dismiss Paul, they also dismiss the adequacy of their experience of God, which Paul mediated to them. They reject their own past by choosing a Christianity of show rather than service. And because his gospel is one of service, Paul's greatest boast is in his weakness. If I must boast, I will boast in the things that show my weaknesses. Like David, Paul does not defend himself directly against his opponents. Instead, he turns his attention to the only one whose opinion and approval truly matters, God. If we find God's approval through Christ, then the opinion of others is of no consequence. Instead, we are set free from the need to draw comparisons or to engage in competition. We are set free from our enslavement to ourselves to demonstrate God's love to those who oppose us, in the same way that God has demonstrated his own love for us. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, stay on the trail.